The first thing I actually learned when making the project was using a new camera because originally we did it on my video camera, which was fine. I knew how to press record, I knew how to press stop, the simple things like that. But then when we refilmed, I did it on a DSLR camera, and I actually struggled with that because I didn't know all of the settings and how it all worked. And filming isn't as simple on a DSLR, and so I had to learn quickly how to use it. Although I wasn't the cameraman, there were a few shots where I did have to film, and so I found it quite difficult to adjust to using a DSLR. And so I think that's something I learned when making the product. But no, I did have a bit of background experience because I've always been passionate about media, and so I've learned how to use basic cameras, but never something as big as a DSLR. Probably the biggest thing about this project and learning technology is learning how to use a Mac and learning how to edit. Before doing this project, I'd never actually used a Mac in my life, and so getting used to the controls and the different function keys and all of that was actually a challenge itself, so let alone getting to learn to edit. But using a Mac was interesting because they are so good for media purposes. Not only do you have the base things like Word and Publisher and all those things that you have on Windows, but the editing capacity on a Mac is so much better than on Windows, so it was hard to learn, but it was well worth it. Particularly with editing, I used iMovie to edit my piece, and I found that putting the clips in was easy, cropping them down was easy, but making the sound effects fit, making the clips work together, adding music, putting effects on the clips, so blurs and transitions, was more difficult than I expected because it all has to fit together and it all has to look professional, so I found that quite difficult. But making the title sequence was difficult as well because you had to find the right piece of music to go in, and you needed technology to do that because you needed the music to fit, and so it meant dragging different bits of music in and out, fitting it to the clip, and then realising, well, it doesn't work. And then actually making the titles itself was difficult because iMovie and a Mac in general limits you to the kind of titles you can have, and so it was difficult to make them fit for my piece because ours is a psychological horror, and making titles like that on iMovie is not easy, and so that was something we really had to think about. We faced a lot of problems filming our piece. We had to film it 3 times. The first time we did it on my camera, and we found that the camera had to be connected to the laptop for the clips to be in there, which sounds a bit odd, but even if you took them out of the main folder, they would still disappear if you took the camera out, unplugged the camera, and so that was difficult. So we refilmed it a second time on the DSLRs, and we found that the SD card had broke when we put it into the Mac to start editing, and that was frustrating because we were really proud of that work that we'd done, especially given that we'd already redone it. So it was really upsetting for us to have to do it a third time. I also found that working with technology on the actual set was difficult because sometimes when you were filming the camera would play up, or the SD card would say it's not plugged in when it is. Small things like that that waste time and frustrate the people on set. And that's something you have to learn to come across and deal with, and that was something I learned when making the product. Some examples of when both the camera and the editing got in our way is when we were on location. We were filming a couple of scenes in the graveyard next to the forest, and the camera kept turning the display off, which was really frustrating to us because every time we would turn it back on, we would get the shot ready, get it steady, and as we were about to press record, the display would go off, which was really frustrating to us. When we were editing, we found that some of the clips and the sound would not match up sometimes, and it would be behind, and so we actually spent a good 2 hours fitting up the audio with the actual clips because when we imported them they were behind all the time. Just general things like that made editing and filming a bit of a nightmare. Overall, although we came across a lot of problems when making our piece, I'm really proud of what we've come out with. and I've learned how to use a proper professional camera, how to edit properly, learn how to use a brand new computer, and just learn how to make a really nice opening to a movie. And I hope that when we start to show it to others, specifically our target audience, and I'm really looking forward to getting some feedback on that and seeing if other people enjoy it.